Sometimes in life we deal with various struggles and we try to make the right choice, but sometimes those right choices still lead to hard times. Today on Geek Devotions, we're going to talk about how to deal with those, and we're talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Hello, Devoted Geeks, and welcome to Geek Devotions, the show from Devoted Geeks, who are devoted to letting you know you're loved. I'm Dalton. I'm so glad you hit the play button. If you're new to our show, we take geek pop culture items like movies, video games, comic books, and we use them to let you know that you're loved. So, if you don't watch past this moment, know this: we love you, we care about you. There is a plan and a purpose for your life. Do not give up. Also, before we begin our devotion, I want to remind you that we do have this very cool Mary New t-shirt. So if you ever wondered what the answer to the question of Mary, did you know? This is it. If you want this shirt, check out our website, geekdevotions.com. We are in the middle of Mythical Mayhem, which is our month-long series. We're talking about mythology and things coming from mythology. And this week, I'm taking a look at an interesting game that deals with some mythology, and we're gonna get a little bit of actual mythology also at the same time, and that is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. If you're not familiar with the game, it is another game in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and in this particular one, you're playing a character who has gone on a bit of a journey, hence Odyssey, if you will, in Greek culture, and he is trying to discover a mystery wrapped around his personal identity. A unique aspect about this game, as opposed to other Assassin's Creed games, are opportunities to make choices as to how your character responds to other people's, and that has ramifications later on in the game. And sometimes there are choices you make, thinking you're trying to be a nice person, do the right thing, and more tragedy happens. In fact, in the game, there's a portion where a character is speaking to the main character, and it says that your life is like tragedy. It's like a theater to them. Within Greek stories, within the Greek mythology, we have these tragedies that take place where there never seems to be a right answer. Things always seem to be falling apart. Even when the character's doing good things, they fall apart and there's tragedy that takes place. And this is a running theme throughout a lot of these Greek stories. Some would say that this leads to the question of why bother? What's the point in trying if it's always going to be bad? Now, this is an honest question. In life, things go wrong. We live in a fallen world where things genuinely just fall apart. People make poor decisions, and you may try to make the right decision, but because of other people's decisions, you're still struggling. There's still things that are going wrong. And this leads to a lot of issues of depression and fear and anxiety. So what should we do? Well, as a Christian, I have to stand on a biblical principle found in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. In this passage, we see that God works to the good of all those who love him. This is a concept of that as we lean onto God, he's going to take care of us. That doesn't mean that everything's going to be sunshine and roses. It doesn't mean there's never going to be hard times. It doesn't mean that we're going to avoid suffering completely. But what that does mean is that we have hope, that God's going to work things out for our good as we trust in him, as we put our faith in him. This conversation of loving God isn't just a, oh, I love you, God. It's not just that. But when we truly have love for God and we love God, it means that we're trusting him fully. We're depending on his grace, but also we're depending on his will. We're putting our hands in his and going, all right, how do you want me to proceed? When we face decisions in life, instead of just arbitrarily picking something or depending on our own understanding, we go, what is the will of God? What does he want? And we put our trust in that. And that takes a level of discernment. That takes prayer. It takes being in relationship with him. That doesn't mean that we'll be free from heartache. If you look at the biblical stories that take place, those who follow God still had to deal with struggles. There were still things they dealt with that were hard. But the difference is that they trusted in God. They relied in him. And as they did, he provided. He took care of them. He worked things out for their good. It wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. There wasn't $1 million in their bank account all of a sudden. But there was provision. There was grace. And they survived and did well. This is a hard thing to say to some people, especially when they're in the midst of some terrible things. And I understand that. Over the years, we've shared bits and pieces of my personal story here at Geek Devotions about some of the heartache and the tragedy that I went through as a young man, from being bullied at school to having some very terrible things take place within my family that broke me, led me to not trust people, led me to be very, very angry, led me to not love people. But what I discovered is that through that, as I leaned into God, as I trusted him, he took care of me. He provided for me. Now, it took me many years of trusting him and looking back and going, wow, look how he's provided for me over the years. Look how he's carried me through. Look how he's changed my heart and helped me to see things and love people in a different way. Again, when you trust in God, it's not an instantaneous thing where everything just works out magically. I wish it was. And sometimes there's some provisions that aren't instantaneous. They are right there. But there is the journey that we have to walk. And when you're in it, it seems like it's just tragedy after tragedy and there's just no hope. But if you were to pause and look back, you begin to see God's grace and provision time after time. Life is not a Greek tragedy, but tragedies happen. But when you are with God, when you follow him faithfully, those tragedies are aligned with hope. You may not see it in the moment, but he does provide. And there is hope. My encouragement for you guys is you may be going through some hard times. There are things that you're suffering through, and they are genuine things that you are fearful about, that you're doubting, and you're wondering, how are you going to survive? And it's various situations across the board. Some of you are in a really crazy situation with family. Some of you are dealing with questions about how you're going to feed the people, your family, and those you're responsible, pay the bills, maybe just take one more day of being in a particular location, whatever it is you are facing. Trust in God, lean in him. I'm not there, so I can't speak specifically to your situation, but I can tell you this. He'll take care of you. He'll provide. It may not be the way you want it to be, but at the end of the day, he will work things out to your good. Question of the week for you guys. As I said in my intro, I've been playing through Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's actually interesting. It feels more like they had a really interesting game that was based in geek cult or in Greek culture, and they were like, hey, we'll slap Assassin's Creed on it. It's a thing, but it's been interesting. So here's a question for you guys. Assassin's Creed, it takes place in various cultures and time frames. Where would you like to see an Assassin's Creed game based out of? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Also want to remind you guys that we have all kinds of content coming out all month long based around the idea of Mythical Mayhem. We have an article that dropped yesterday from our friend Dave Gardner, aka The Enthusiast. That's his podcast. Fantastic individual. I want to encourage you guys to check it out, talking about how understanding some things about mythology kind of helps you understand scripture a little bit better. It's really a fascinating article. I want to encourage you guys to check it. We also have podcasts coming out for We Read Allegedly, for The Bottom Shelf, all kinds of great stuff. Make sure you guys stay connected. I also want to say a special thank you to our devoted Patreon geeks who help us to do what we do here on a weekly basis. For as little as $1 a month, they help to take care of our lights, to take care of our camera, to provide the stuff that we make the devotions on. We are so appreciative of all of our devoted Patreon geeks. And if you want to become one, visit our website, geekdevotions.com, for that, as well as all the information that you can find stuff here for Geek Devotions, whether it's our Discord, our YouTube channels, our Facebook stuff, all that. Geekdevotions.com is the place to go, guys. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay devoted. Peace and love.